I say the same thing every day, but it just kind of keeps coming out that way. It is day 20 of 33 days with me, Jelelle Awen, and this Metamorphosis journey that we're on. And I got such a sweet comment yesterday from Janet. Hello, Janet, who's been watching, I think, every day, and she said these videos are the gift that keeps on giving, and that really touched my heart to feel that, and I'm really hoping there's an exponential service here. There's in the moment those of you that may have been following along as I'm releasing these, and then there's those of you that will take them in later on, whenever that now is, whenever Soulful Heart or I or one of us comes into your field, maybe your higher self or Metatron or someone's going, check this out. you need to take this in. However these videos find you, they are truly a gift from my heart to your heart, and I hope you feel that about them. I am doing this every morning, waking up organically, and actually as I'm preparing my smoothie every morning, I'm thinking about, what am I going to talk about? What's coming into my field? What's important? What needs to be brought? And today it felt like appropriate to talk about a conscious community and moving out of the lone wolf phase and finding and drawing your soul family. And this, of course, is very near and dear to my heart because this is the reality I have lived in for many years now. And in fact, today is our group day. I'm going to be spending, after this video, I'm going to be spending the rest of the day facilitating group space, which is everyone sharing their processes, which parts they're currently working with, and whatever's coming up for them around the ascension energies, their ongoing process, their sacred unions, whatever is ripe to come up. And the beautiful piece about, this is a group circle, a group healing space. In this group circle, people are able to share their parts reality and have it felt and seen and heard by others who are also engaging in a parts reality. And there's just such movement in that. It's really amazingly beautiful. And we do, the work we do remotely, mostly now over Zoom with people, is very moving and very impactful as well. We really feel the parts with them and support those of us that are facilitators, which is me, my mate, Raphael, and Soulful Heart facilitators Gabriel Hartman and Kalina Calibri. And what we're feeling in that session space is really sacred and important, but also in the group it becomes more of a reality as we're all agreeing that this is our reality, this parts reality, and this Soulful Heart way of life is what we're agreeing, yes, this feels resonant to be. And being in that resonant field, being in that group Merkaba, if you will, really amplifies your own connection with your parts. It somehow validates the reality for parts of you that may still be skeptical or not sure. It's so interesting when a part is skeptical about being a part, although this is often the case, because actually being recognized as a part then means that they need to be felt and that they get seen, and it's can feel really vulnerable and exposing at first, and then over time to parts of us it starts feeling really nourishing, and they want more and more of it. They want more experience of being seen as a separate part from you. They have personalities, they have realities, and they want them acknowledged. So to have these realities acknowledged in a social space is a really big deal. It moves a lot. And one of the reasons it moves so much in the social space is because that is the area of our lives where usually we experience the most wounding and the most trauma from being in dissonant fields with others. So it was the reality for which our parts were the most invalidated. The reason why parts form in the first place is this lack of being felt in resonant ground with others. And of course the main others for which this happened is our birth family. So as we're being invited, I believe, to move into soul family connections, what comes up, of course, is our birth family experience. And I would say for most of us, that was a mixed bag of some good moments and some really painful moments, some traumatic moments. Even if you were not what you would call abused, there's still there's a form of abuse to our soul field and to parts of us just being here. That doesn't make us ultimately, in the bigger picture, victims, but it does acknowledge and validate the difficulties for us. And for most of us who are on the ascension path right now, we're seeing it ahead of the mainstream, we're doing something ahead of the curve. That probably played out in our birth family relationships as well, where we were the black sheep of the family, or we were the ones that weren't gotten or understood by other family members. And maybe even the culture around us didn't reflect our spirituality, our values, our social values. There just wasn't an outside picture that matched how we felt inside. And what I hear from people a lot in sessions, what we work through with parts, is really this feeling, this core feeling of I don't belong. I don't belong. That's how parts can feel, parts of us can feel about being in the birth family configuration. And I'm bringing this up because this is the place, I feel, this is the place to go to in order to open up to soul family, in order to begin to move into these possibilities of very resonant grounds with other people. We need to feel what wasn't resonant to us, to validate it. So it's not just about go find your soul tribe. It's really about you can draw your soul tribe as you draw your tribe from within. It goes back to this theme again that I've been bringing during the series, which is that as you create a family inside, as you heal your inner daughter, for example, or your inner son, by being this loving parental energy, this 5D self, to that son and daughter inside, then something heals there. Something of the experience, in fact, not just something, but eventually everything, of the childhood experience where the non-resonant grounds were so acute that, of course, that impacts how you experience and how you show up in intimacy with others to this day. It has to. How could it not? So, rather than say that we need to get over the past and move on, it's really about being with the parts of us that experience these grounds and feeling them and feeling compassion. If you were suddenly teleported to a scene in your childhood for which you feel a lot of pain, one of those times where if I asked you, what's a painful scene in your childhood, and it just comes up, whatever it is, wouldn't you feel compassion for your young self? You know, if you could see yourself as a child or a teenager and what you were going through and how the energies felt around you, if you consider yourself an empathic person, if you consider yourself a healer, if you consider yourself sensitive, then of course you would. You would feel compassion for that child self of you, or that teenage self. And the process really is, what would you say to that version of you that's in that environment where they feel so isolated? And so there's that. And then the other piece that comes into play when it comes to moving into soul family connections is the abandonment wounding. And I've been hearing this coming up more and more as well, because I believe it is being pushed up by these love and light and unification codes that are coming in. So it's pushing up a desire to be in community again, to experience unity consciousness again within our relationships. What this, I believe, then kicks up is our abandonment wounding. And from what I've experienced in myself and with others is that this has two levels to it. One level of the abandonment wounding is what I just described. So it's that feeling of, I don't belong in this family. I don't belong here. And of course we could say on a higher soul level, you and every family member chose this. You agreed that you would play this out together. That doesn't comfort a 10-year-old part of us that just wants to feel like it has family and that it belongs. That doesn't provide comfort to that part, to know about the soul perspective. So that part feels a fundamental sense of abandonment from that dissonance. That's one of the pieces, and that can be a very deep piece that we go into in our process. And the other aspect of abandonment has to do with star family and angel family and all of our meta-soul aspects. Really it has to do with abandonment from divine source. I described in a couple videos ago about the meta-soul and this reality of fractaling off of divine source into these projections of expressions in all different kinds of dimensions. And as this happens, when we choose then one of the expressions is going to be into 3D, we leave behind, we purposely choose, we drop a veil of amnesia, whatever you want to call it, but we create and choose abandonment. We choose to be cut off from the flow of our star family, especially. If we didn't do that, then we couldn't fully immerse in this experience of being here. We would be constantly drifting out back toward that higher consciousness. Plus, I think it would be a real dissonance in our bodies, in our hearts, and our fields to be here in 3D. It would be a real challenge, and it's already a challenge. So what happens in that is that there's the inner child that feels what I just described about birth family abandonment. Then there is a star seed child that I've discovered in the last few years. And the star seed child, people talk about being a star seed, and I really think what they're vibing into here is their star seed aspect. So this star seed child is really kind of like the magical child, the wonder child, and it's our star seed. It comes from the stars. It remembers star family when it can start to remember. But before it can remember, it feels a lot of abandonment. It feels really lost. And I have felt this pretty much my whole life. It was when I started connecting with my star seed named Aurora a few years ago that I really started to understand this, what was going on for her. I had worked through a lot of the birth family abandonment stuff, so it was then the next phase was about this star family abandonment. And I believe that this is what a lot of people are feeling right now when they say, I feel a strong abandonment wounding. And they can point to certain things that happened to them if one of their caregivers left. One of mine did, my father did, my birth father. So I worked that, of course, quite a bit with parts of me. Not having a birth father, not knowing half of my biology or the energy, the lineage that I came from. So that my soul chose that, of course, to help me feel this other abandonment wounding of my star family and leaving them. Another thing that we can sign up for too is adoption. So either both parents adopting us, maybe we know one parent, we don't know the other parent. That also is another setup of this ultimate abandonment from star family. So just looking at what manifested this life is one aspect of it, and a very important place to go. That's why I'm emphasizing it. But the other place to go is related to this galactic star family piece, and it's also coming up, I believe, stronger because star being contact is coming into alignment for so many of us, and is collectively, I believe, what is going to happen more and more in the next few years. So it's being pushed up, for sure. And this gives you a sense of some of the frequencies that are going on when we look at going into soul family connection. So when we start feeling soul family connection come into our field through synchronicities, primarily through resonance, just that, it's like that feeling of falling in love, really. That's not just romantic, it's also soul family. It's a feeling of reunion. It's a feeling of just knowing each other without a lot of get to know you. It's just natural. And in those feelings, they're amazing. And they call us to do all kinds of courageous things and make all kinds of new changes and choices. And yet, it's also scary for parts of you and us to go into those grounds because it pushes up, it triggers, it brings into your field the star family abandonment and birth family. So again, this is not just a simple matter of find and draw your soul tribe. This is really about feeling the inner places, feeling the resistances inside to going into these grounds. The other piece of this too is that the degree to which you're anchored, you're 3D anchored to, 3D relationships, it's going to be that much more challenging to let in soul family frequencies. So 3D anchoring looks like birth family relationships going on that are not resonant with you and that are actually quite toxic and abusive, and yet you're continuing them in your life and letting them into your life and not setting boundaries around them. As those energies are still in your life, then it's difficult, if not impossible, for soul family frequencies to come in. The other piece is if you're in a long-term romantic relationship, or maybe not as long-term, but it's just not resonant with who you are and your awakening. Again, it makes it more challenging for soul family frequencies to reach you because you're occupied. Makes sense, right? It's like a dock, and if there's other boats in the dock, then the new boat can't come in and come into the pier. And this applies to soul family and conscious community. It also applies to sacred union, of course. So the questions become about what is occupying my social reality? What am I choosing to have come into my field and be in my field and call my energy out. And the other deeper questions are what I brought up today too. What fears and concerns of abandonment come up in parts of me as I feel into soul family? This also can manifest as a fear of being rejected. I feel like those are very similar, with a punisher in there judging as well. Judging your worth and your worth to be claimed by your soul family. So these are some places to feel into as you feel more desire to move out of what I call the lone wolf phase. And the lone wolf phase doesn't mean that you don't have any people in your life. The lone wolf phase can also occur when you do have people, but they're not resonant, like I just described about the boats in the dock. So lone wolf is really this texture of feeling like you don't belong. So even if you have people in your life, you have relationships in your life, you don't feel like they're deeply soul resonant with you. This can push up the lone wolf feeling. Or the other thing is going into what I call the void space, where you let go of a lot of relationships and you're alone. And there's nothing wrong with being alone. It's really the question of, what do you desire though? What do you want intimacies? Do you want soul family connection? Do you want conscious community? And if you feel a desire in your heart and soul for that, then you can look at, maybe it's time to move out of this lone wolf phase and out of my cozy cave and into community. And community, I feel like people hear that word and they think of some kind of community off-grid and growing your own food. And I mean, that may be what your community looks like. But it may not be that at all. It might look very different than that. Obviously, Soulful Heart is a process. It's also a way of life, and it's also a community. So for us, we hold that as an invitation to someone to explore through session space, to feel their parts with us in that session space, and then the desire for community, it just deepens organically and naturally if that's what they want, if that's what they're ready for. And if we feel like resonant soul family, and it's on both sides, it's for us too to feel if that person fits, and is that where we're all headed together, and is that the timeline that we're all on together. So we're definitely offering also a community, and yet the doorway to that is the sessions, because that really tells you and shows you if this is the community for you. So I will leave you to digest all of that with your parts and feel into that. I will link to a couple of articles I've written about conscious community in the description. You can take those in as well. And I'm going to go now to transition into my conscious community and group day. Thank you for joining me. See you next time.